always remember what happened that day, the day that I first witnessed a miracle. And it wasn't only one miracle, but two. But even throughout all the miraculous events of that day, the real amazing thing wasn't what had actually happened, but it was the one who performed the miracles. It was a sunny day in the marketplace of Capernaum, and I was walking along with my big basket of goods, and everyone was just bustling along, minding their own business, when all of a sudden I see this big crowd of people over on the side. So I wanted to see what all the commotion was about, so I head over there, and I hear the name of Jesus said. Now, I had heard a bit about this Jesus. I knew that he had been doing crazy things, some healings, he had been going against the religious leaders, and I wasn't really sure what to think of him. So I decided to get a closer look. So I was able to just kind of wedge my way through the crowd, and all of a sudden there he was, standing right there with his disciples. And currently, as I was just kind of observing them, what they were doing, I see one of the synagogue rulers come up to him, and he just fell down before him, and he said, "Teacher, my daughter, she's dying. She's only 12 years old, and I need you to come and heal her." And Jesus was like, "Yeah, totally, let's go." So they started walking, and they didn't get very far because the crowd was just surrounding him, pressing in at all sides. And as they were trying to walk, all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman. And I had seen her around before, but this was the first time I'd ever seen her out in the marketplace in the middle of the day. Everyone knew that she had been battling this disease for 12 years of her life. She had been bleeding, and she had been to many doctors, many physicians. They hadn't been able to heal her or do anything for her. So she was on the lowest level of society. Everyone could not even touch her or go near her for fear of becoming unclean themselves. So it was quite a surprise to see her there, surrounded by people. Anyone could have touched her, but everyone was so focused on Jesus right then, they didn't even notice. But as soon as I looked at her face, I knew that she was on a mission. She wanted to get to Jesus. So as I watched, she reached out, and she just barely touched the corner of his cloak. And the moment she did that, I saw a change come over her face. Something big had happened. And presently, Jesus, he turned around, and he said, "Who touched me?" And his disciples, they kind of laughed at him because everyone was crowded around him. Obviously, everyone was touching him. But he said, "No, I felt the power go out of me." And he insisted on finding out who had touched his cloak. So the woman, she came forward. She was so afraid for fear of being humiliated in front of everyone. She was not supposed to touch anyone. So she was trembling. She came forward, but she told him of her condition. And she said in that instant she had been completely healed immediately. So everyone in the crowd was just in shock. They were amazed. And Jesus said, I'll never forget those words that he said. He said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Now go in peace." He called her daughter. She was the lowest of the low of society. But he went against all of the cultural norms, and he called her out. And the amazing thing to me was that he had not only healed her physically and let her go in peace. She would have been content with that. But he healed her position in society. Everyone knew that she was now clean. That just blew my mind. But she went away, and the disciples and the synagogue leader were starting to look a little worried. They knew that time was ticking for his daughter. And currently one of his servants came up to them, and he said, "It's too late. Your daughter has died." They all looked just very, very sad and disappointed. But Jesus, he said, "Don't be afraid. If you only have to believe, and she will be made well." And I could tell that after witnessing what had just happened, they did have a little bit of hope. So they all continued walking to his house, and I just kind of stayed in the shadows. I just wanted to see what was going to happen. I knew that this was going to be something good. So I followed them along, and he only let the mother and the father And James and John and Peter, his 3 top disciples, go into the house with him. So I just kind of made my way around. I just peeked in a little window on the side. And when I looked in there, I could tell the daughter was dead. She looked very pale, and you could tell that she had been laying there for a while. But Jesus, he went up, he sat down right next to her, he grabbed her hand, and all he said was, "Child, arise." And just like that, she sat up. I could not believe my eyes. I almost fell right out of the window. But she did. And everyone was just in shock. They couldn't believe what this Jesus could do. And I'll always remember, as soon as everyone was just marveling, all Jesus said was, "Now, get her something to eat." And every time he spoke, I was just amazed at the simplicity, but the amount of depth that was behind his words. And the last thing I heard him say that day was not to tell anyone what had happened. Oh, but he couldn't have meant me, right? Well, anyways, all I know is that witnessing the remarkable healing and death brought to life in that day, I could not be silent. I was transformed just from watching him, and that is something that I could not keep to myself, even if I had tried.